Newsflash, it's 2007, 8 p.m. on a Monday night, and Kate Moss is launching her Topshop clothing line. Crowds gathered eagerly, the curtains opened, and alongside the mannequins in the shop window was the model herself in a bright red maxi dress. It was just a 10-second appearance. But it would go on to be cemented in the minds of Kate Moss-obsessed millennials for all eternity. 10 seconds that symbolised the coming together of probably the UK's most successful high street brand with arguably the UK's most successful model.
She was high profile and in the spotlight, but actually she had loads of fun with it. She was always at Glastonbury, often wearing Topshop. She was just spotted in culturally relevant places that people really related to.
Kate Moss released her range into a world where the buzz of optimism filled the air. Rihanna hadn't yet gone on hiatus from releasing bangers, Amy Winehouse was headlining at Glastonbury, and those American candy stores were but a twinkle in Oxford Street's eye. Children were busy queuing for the latest Harry Potter book or learning the dance moves to Soulja Boy in their classrooms. This was a happy time. Also, crucially for Kate Moss, the it girl was alive and well, and she would never be caught dead on her sofa in her own range of loungewear with a mini mic telling us she put chia seeds in her yogurt pot, or alternatively shouting at another contestant on Love Island. And it wasn't just the it girl that was alive and well, it was the high street. Back then, people were keen to pile into Topshop's 5-floor Oxford Street flagship. Of course, we all know that this once thriving store is now being turned into an Arcadia. We all knew where it was. Forget Buckingham Palace or Big Ben. Topshop was the centre of London.
Like, well, where should we meet? Outside Topshop in Oxford Circus.
Outside big Topshop, yeah. Met a lot of friends there and would spend hours just trawling through the shop.
The flagship attracted an average of 28,000 people every day. That's 10 million each year. I mean, where else could you go on a Sunday lunchtime and find DJ sets, nail stations, pick and mix, cupcake stands, alongside multiple floors of clothes?
It's just wild that you could go in totally unprepared for an evening and come out head to toe dressed, hair done, nails done, makeup, and you could just go straight out.
There was always like stuff going on where you could just lose a whole day in big Topshop.
At one point we had these amazing like pod fitting rooms which almost encouraged you to go in with friends and have that kind of like try-on experience, which no other retailer was doing at that time.
Not to mention the collaborations the brand did with Mary Katranzu and Christopher Kane, championing new fresh designers and showing they had a finger on the pulse of fashion. Topshop also attracted celebrities to the high street. Pixie and Peaches Geldof, Alexa Chung and Cara Delevingne were all happy to be seen wearing the brand. For many, Kate Moss's Topshop range has stood the test of time. Her infamous pansy dress has been copied hundreds of times over. In fact, there have been over 58,000 searches for Kate Moss's Topshop range on Vinted in recent years.
If you would have thought back then that a supermodel was launching a fashion range, you would think of something entirely different and totally unaffordable maybe. This is quite affordable. The pieces are beautiful.
The stuff was so good that were like modelled on Kate Moss's wardrobe.
However, ignorance was bliss back then, and although many of us remember that era fondly, peak Topshop really wasn't perfect. In 2007, the Sunday Times alleged that Topshop clothes were made with slave labour. The employees apparently said they had to live in dormitories with one toilet per 100 staff, that they had to work from 7 a.m. until late, that they had to meet strict targets and deadlines if they were to receive their full pay, and that they were only being paid around 40 pence per hour, although Topshop rejected these claims after carrying out factory audits. The Topshop employees on the shop floor had complaints as well. In 2016, the United Voices of World Trade, along with 12 of Topshop's cleaners, protested outside the Oxford Street flagship. They were demanding fair pay, as these staff said they couldn't afford to live on their current wage. What's sad is that during its humble beginnings, Topshop was providing clothes for women chosen by women, which was actually quite rare in the fashion industry.
We were all Topshop customers as well. So, if we liked it and loved the idea of it, then they were going to like it too.
Topshop started as a small section of a basement store in Sheffield in 1964. It was launched by Raymond Montague Burton of the Burton Group. You could say that Topshop, initially, wasn't all that cool, until Jane Shepperton took the job as junior allocator in the 80s and began rising the ranks, transforming it slowly into more of a destination.
She made Topshop what it was.
The high street wasn't particularly exciting. There wasn't a huge amount going on. I guess in a way it was sort of unlike anything else.
She led a team of talented women.
All of them of kind of the highest standard, were all extremely creative.
She employed people that she believed in and trusted, and together we grew that into a fantastic business.
The thing that drove us was the desire to create something that people would absolutely love. More than make it a very commercial business that made loads of money, but the upshot was that it did actually make loads of money because everybody loved it.
The Topshop team travelled around the world to find inspiration for their collections, taking pictures of people with edgy style.
Yeah, we'd just ask and say, do you mind if we'd take a photograph, or going to just some random flea market that you'd read about in a guidebook. We didn't have social media in those days.
This innovation paid off. In 2005, Topshop became the first high street brand to send its clothes down the catwalk at London Fashion Week.
It was such good fun. We knew at the time that the press would sort of say that, oh, well, the high street copies designers all the time and all this. And we got kind of really sick of that because we had a fantastic design team. Many of the people in our design team had their own labels, but had decided that they wanted to come and work with us. And we thought, well, hang on a minute. The only way we can prove this is if we show our collection at the same time as all the designers are showing their collections at London Fashion Week.
The designs were just really good.
No other high street store had it. Editors would come from all the fashion magazines and buy stuff for London Fashion Week.
We wanted to make great design accessible to people who couldn't afford designer labels.
And it was just amazing, that was a democracy of fashion.
But while important, unfortunately these women were not the true owners of the brand. Monaco yacht dweller Philip Green, who was back then considered a successful business mogul with a desirable little black book of celebrities, bought Topshop as part of his purchase of the Arcadia group in 2002. For £840 million in total. Initially, Topshop went from strength to strength under Green's leadership. In 2009, Topshop had a presence in 31 countries across Europe, Asia and Latin America, and it was taking on the US, widely considered the most difficult market. That year they launched in New York, which included another Kate Moss in the window appearance, this time in a green maxi dress.
So tell me, what's it like? How are the crowds outside?
Hey. Have you seen it?
We're here at the Topshop opening. The line is around the block. Kate Moss is going to be here. It's crazy.
I've been waiting for this to happen for 5 years now. I flew over just for it.
And there was also a Balthazar launch party with celebrity guests including Debbie Harry, Jennifer Lopez, Anna Wintour and Zach Braff, to name a few. However, behind the scenes, trouble was brewing.
It's well documented, but Philip and I were not suited. We have very different views about how to run a business.
He was all about the deal, and then the pressure from more competition coming into the market.
Zara at the time used to say, we will have an entirely new stock every 3 weeks or something. He thought that's what people wanted.
We introduce new merchandise every week, every 10 days. We have this will be gone. They'll be new in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think that's the energy of the business.
We couldn't sustain the way of working like that, and it meant pushing more products offshore, using cheaper fabrics, cheaper factories. It just downgraded the whole mood, aesthetic, vibe, everything.
I think is the essence of what Topshop stands for.
But that wasn't what Topshop was about, so...
One of the reasons that Topshop was so successful was that we really cared about the quality of the product.
People will see through it so quickly, people are not stupid.
The last 5 years was difficult, but the last 3 years was really bad, and then day by day it just got progressively worse.
You could do it for a certain period of time and then you think, no, it's time to go.
Sadly, that was just the beginning. By 2016, there were questions over whether Philip Green was contributing enough tax to the government. And then a department store collapsed, BHS, a department store that Philip Green owned as part of the Arcadia group. BHS was paying $414 million worth of dividends over 4 years, and it was suspected that $400 million of those were going to Philip Green's family as co-owners of BHS. The then co-chair of the Select Committee, Ian Wright, had a poignant metaphor.
He took the rings from BHS's fingers, he beat it black and blue, he starved it in food and water, he put it on life support, and then he wanted credit for keeping it alive.
Green, then sold this struggling department store chain for £1 to Dominic Chappelle, a former bankrupt with no retail experience, who, according to a judge, plundered it for money. BHS's collapse cost 11,000 people their jobs.
It was embarrassing to say that you're working for a business that played a part in that. It's really embarrassing. It makes you just feel very disgusted.
And this is when Philip Green's reputation hit the floor. Labour MP at the time, David Winnick, was beside himself.
A billionaire who should never have received a knighthood. A billionaire which has shamed British capitalism.
As a response, more than 100 MPs voted for his knighthood to be annulled. And although he managed to retain it, technically he's Sir Philip Green. This was the first time MPs have ever voted for a knighthood to be annulled, so it was a big deal. One final nail in this man's coffin came in 2018 during the Me Too movement, where Green received several allegations of unlawful, sexual and racist behaviour. According to The Telegraph, he had at least 5 non-disclosure agreements in place with his staff. At the time, a female employee allegedly received over £1 million after he groped her, kissed her, called her a naughty girl and made comments about her weight. While a black male employee received £1 million after Philip Green allegedly mocked his dreadlocks and said he should be throwing spears in the jungle. But Green told the paper that he categorically denies any unlawful sexual or racist behaviour. In October 2018, the brand faced even more controversy. Pink, not green, was trending on Twitter after Topshop, in what was a terrible PR decision, decided to tear down Scarlett Curtis's feminist book stand after 20 minutes of it going up, even though Topshop had originally agreed to host this stand.
This is a shop run by a very powerful man who has made his fortune off selling and marketing to teenage girls for his whole career. And something that is fighting for their equality is too controversial to be in his store.
Emma Freud, Scarlett Curtis's mother, quickly tweeted that this was Philip Green's doing. Green made no comment, but the store responded with an apology and donated £25,000 to the Girl Up charity.
Consumers care so much more about the ethics and values of a brand than we might have done in the past.
It can cause customers to feel uncomfortable spending their money with them until such time as they're satisfied that they're not perhaps lining the pockets of somebody that they might think is not on their moral platform.
Lockdown didn't help, and Topshop went into administration in 2020. Green sold it off in 2021 to ASOS. And this was when, shamefully, thousands of retail workers found out they lost their job through reading about it on Twitter. As a now solely online brand, Topshop appears to be losing its value. After only 4 years of buying it, ASOS sold 75% of Topshop to Heartland, who paid $135 million for this stake. I know it's a big number, but it's relatively cheap considering ASOS paid $265 million for it originally. Could this have all been avoided if Philip Green hadn't had a disastrous fall from grace? Well, there was one other issue. He never invested in an online market. Look at Zara and H&M, which is still able to proliferate the high street, offering price points that aren't too dissimilar to Topshop's. But investing in online is something these places jumped on. If you didn't know what had been going on behind the scenes, you might have been baffled, because Topshop feels way more precious to millennials than H&M and Zara. Unlike these shops, Topshop once graced rural towns across the country, offering clothes that were a cut above anything else a teen had access to.
I think that was one of the things that was so amazing about Topshop, is having 300 shops. So, whatever town or city you lived in, you pretty much had access, even if it was just in your local Debenhams or something with a concession.
We all dreamt of filling our wardrobes with Topshop, even though often new look was the best we could afford. Maybe that's why, despite all of this, our enduring love for the brand has remained. And millennial screenwriters understand this. Dolly Alderton's Everything I Know About Love was peppered with Topshop. And was the real reason Emerald Fennell based Saltburn 15 years earlier so she could dress the cast in Kate Moss's Topshop range? Probably. That's why, in spite of Topshop's weak financial position, when these 3 posts appeared on their Instagram alongside the words, "We missed you too, we've been listening," something primal was sparked within millennials, making them salivate for their childhoods. Could it be a high street comeback? The posts, it turned out, were advertising a London treasure hunt and the return of its standalone website. But many of us are holding out hope for more.
I still think that people loved the idea of a physical space.
I can still picture it, I can still picture the excitement of walking into that first store. It was like a collective female experience.
I like to talk to the staff. I like to sort of say, does this suit me? You know, I think it's a fun thing to do. I don't really like shopping online.
However, are we losing sight of what we really want and need?
I don't think we need it.
I don't think you can reproduce that in the same way today.
It's 20 years later and we've all learnt a lot of new things. It certainly shouldn't be anything like what it was then.
I think if it came back, it would be cool if it was doing so in a more sustainable way as well.
What's cool now would be a Topshop that was more of the product what was actually either pre-loved or dead stock.
If Topshop opened and started selling stock from like the early noughties that hadn't sold, that would be amazing.
Apparently, they've been listening, that's what they said. So if they're listening to this...
That would be amazing. And then it would be right in there. I'd be like queuing to get the like, you know, unsold noughties Kate Moss top.
If they were listening, I would say Topshop was exciting and fun and full of joy because the people who were there wanted it to be the best experience that their customers could ever have. What would you absolutely love yourself? Think about that and then be true to that vision, and that's exactly what Topshop should be.